Have we spoke about Boeing and the situation they in? The scandal? Let's check it out. This one is the Boeing scandal just got a lot worse. Let's check it.
Last week on Cold Fusion, we uploaded an episode on how Boeing went from an innovative engineering company to a corporate husk designed to enrich investors. It was greed at the cost of safety, and in the worst cases, it cost lives. Now, it seems like the chickens have finally come home to roost for Boeing. In just a week since the episode was published, a series of incidents have taken place that can only be described as alarming. From a wheel falling off a plane during takeoff and dish soap being used in a production facility, to the death of a whistleblower. Boeing's 2024 is not going well. In this episode, we'll see what's...
And y'all want me to get on a plane, wheels falling off, people not here no more, here today, gone tomorrow. Like, y'all want me to get on that? No.
Taken place since the last episode. Look briefly into some of the claims made by John Barnett and figure out what's next for Boeing. Just a note, I am traveling at the moment and using a different microphone with no soundproofing, so apologies in advance.
You are watching Cold Fusion TV.
First, on March 4th, passengers aboard a United Airlines flight from Texas to Florida on a Boeing 737-900 witnessed, quote, bright orange flames shooting out of the plane's engine. Passenger Elliot Trexler described hearing a loud noise while in the air. Quote, there was a loud explosion. There was no question in any of our minds that something bad had happened. That combined with the plane nosediving and seeing flames.
I'd have passed out. What? Come on, my worst fear is happening right before my eyes? Yeah, no.
Then, on March 8th, a Boeing 737 MAX, operated by United Airlines, carrying 160 passengers and 6 crew members, slid off the runway while landing due to a malfunction in the landing gear. In the very same week, a tire fell off a Boeing 777 shortly after takeoff from San Francisco Airport. It detached while the plane was in mid-air and fell to the ground below, smashing into cars in a parking lot nearby. And just a few days ago, at least 50 people were injured due to a sudden plunge on a Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner. This was during a flight between Australia and New Zealand. A passenger on that flight described how a sudden drop caused people to be thrown up out of their seats, smashing into the roof of the plane. And this was with such force that it broke panels and injured 50 passengers. Another Boeing 777-300, operated by United Airlines during a flight from Sydney to San Francisco, had to turn around mid-flight due to hydraulic liquid pouring out of the landing gear. Before we all panic, we need to put things into perspective. Globally, there's over 100,000 flights per day, so statistically, air travel is pretty safe, but it's clear that these incidents seem to be increasing in frequency. In all
Y'all kill me with it. Statistically, it's everything is okay, it's pretty safe. Statistically, I want to say that, but this video ain't making it sound that way at all.
Investigations into these incidents are all ongoing, and we may find that some of the fault lies with the operators, as opposed to being a Boeing issue. And while there may be some truth to that, there's one person who definitely didn't believe that.
One, this is not a 737 problem, it's a Boeing problem. And I know the FAA's gone in and they've done due diligence and inspections to assure that the door plugs of the 737 are installed properly and the fasteners are torqued properly. But my concern is, what's the rest of the airplane? What's the rest of the condition of the airplane? And the reason my concern for that is, back in 2012, Boeing started removing inspection operations off their jobs. So it left the mechanics to buy off their own work.
That was John Barnett in an interview with TMZ about a month ago, and he was talking about the door plug situation with Alaska Airlines. John Barnett was a 62-year-old former Boeing employee turned whistleblower. He worked as the quality manager for over 30 years, and after his retirement in 2017, he's been publicly sounding the alarm and sharing his concerns about Boeing's practices. I say John was a 62-year-old man because unfortunately, just as he was about to testify against Boeing the next day, John was found dead of an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. His lawyers only found out because he was a no-show for the lawsuit and wasn't answering his phone.
This morning, police in Charleston, South Carolina tell NBC News they are aware of the death of a former Boeing employee turned whistleblower. 62-year-old John Barnett found dead on Friday from what the coroner calls an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound.
As of the making of this episode, police are still investigating his death.
But why was he carrying it, probably? Now, don't get me wrong. We all carry. I carry. I have a license to carry. We all carry. And you got to be cautious, and gun safety is extremely important. Correct. But he was probably carrying for a different reason. He probably felt like they were after him. He probably heard some things. Some people probably made threats. And that might have caused him, if you don't believe that somebody did something to him, made it look like it was a self-inflicted wound. It's either one of the two, I think.
Barnett has appeared on Netflix, TMZ, and has worked with other journalists where he continuously claimed that Boeing's practices were not up to standard. For example, in 2019, Barnett spoke with the BBC and revealed that workers were constantly under pressure and have been, quote, deliberately fitting substandard parts to aircraft on the production line. He also claimed that there were serious problems with oxygen systems, the assembly process, failed tests, and overall mismanagement. He'd mentioned that he'd raised concerns with his managers, but no actions were taken. Barnett went on a long legal battle against Boeing. He alleged that Boeing destroyed his reputation and hampered his career due to the concerns he raised, but Boeing, of course, has denied all allegations. Barnett had worked at Boeing's South Carolina plant since 2010, where he was part of the manufacturing team on the 787 Dreamliners. In an interview with the New York Times in 2019, Barnett claimed, quote, I haven't seen a plane out of Charleston yet that I'd put my name on saying it's safe and airworthy. These statements are in line with a 2014 report by Al Jazeera, which have been resurfacing lately. Secretly filmed footage shows Boeing engineers saying that they would not fly on the very planes that they were manufacturing.
Would you fly on one? No. You won't fly on one. Would you fly on one of these planes? Would you fly on one of these
Probably not.
Would you fly on one of these?
Yeah, it's sketchy.
Sketchy.
Nah, I probably would, but
It's sketchy, but they still rolling them out for people to fly on. I need y'all to see this and pay attention to what's going on. You got workers that are operating on these planes saying, I ain't flying on that. Sketchy. I ain't flying on that.
I mean, I'm happy that was dude.
Our source asked 15 of his co-workers if they'd fly on the Dreamliner. 10 said no.
I wouldn't fly on one of these planes.
You wouldn't? Why wouldn't you?
Huh?
Why wouldn't you?
Because I see the quality of going down around here.
All of this also comes at a time when a 6-week probe by the Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, revealed last week multiple instances in which Boeing and one of its vendors, quote, allegedly failed to comply with manufacturing quality control requirements. The audit, reported by the New York Times, also highlighted issues with a critical supplier, Spirit Aerosystems. Out of 89 products audited, 56 passed, while 33 did not meet the standards. Some insane safety violations were also observed during the FAA audit. Dishwashing soap was used as lubricant for a 737 MAX door, and Boeing engineers were interviewed on how well they understood the quality control process. The average score was 58%. However, Boeing is trying their best to save face. In a statement released by them, they said, quote, based on the FAA audit, our quality stand-downs, and recent expert panel report, we continue to implement immediate changes and develop a comprehensive action plan to strengthen safety and quality and build the confidence of our customers and their passengers. We are squarely focused on taking significant, demonstrated action with transparency at every turn. Meanwhile, the head of the National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB, claims that the surveillance footage of the work being done on the door plug of the fateful Alaska Airlines aircraft has been overwritten by Boeing. Now, this would all be a comical clown show, and it could be funny to watch if it didn't risk the lives of innocent people. So the US government has finally woken up from their slumber and said, enough is enough. The US Department of Justice has opened a criminal investigation into the door plug incident with Alaska Airlines from January. Boeing has already acknowledged in a letter to Congress saying that they cannot find the records for the work done on the door panel of the Alaska Airlines plane. That in itself should send alarm bells ringing. The Wall Street Journal reported that the investigation would assist the department's review of Boeing, and this is to see whether Boeing complied with a previous settlement that resolved a federal investigation into the safety of its 737 MAX aircraft following the two deadly crashes in 2018 and 2019, which we covered in the last episode. All of these incidents have seen a 25% drop in Boeing's stock price since the start of 2024.
Jeez.
So ironically, in the pursuit of maximizing shareholder value, Boeing has done the exact opposite. Cutting corners and saving money is eroding the company's reputation. While it may seem that Boeing could head towards a severe crisis, it's not likely for one main reason. It's no secret that Boeing has a unique relationship with the US government and US presidents. Federal records show that Boeing has spent millions of dollars on lobbying. In fact, according to OpenSecrets.org, Boeing ranks 9th in lobbying activity in Washington since 1998. Boeing is also...
They connecting the dots now. Now they letting y'all know they peeling back the covers right now, letting you see how crooked and how these things is connected and to whom it's connected to. Oh, y'all don't think this stuff get deep? Oh, it gets deep.
the top exporter and defense contractor for the United States. In fact, in 2023, 40% of revenue came from government sources, and the US government alone accounted for 37% of all company revenue. Accusations have also come to light of politicians selling Boeing stock before negative reports came out, suggesting insider trading within the US government.
SEC, where y'all at? SEC, where you at? If one of us did something like that, y'all be beating down our door? Here was some type of task force taking all kind of documents out of our home, putting us in handcuffs. Where y'all at? Here's another example.
Given such close relationships with some key players in government and other influential industries, it's very unlikely that Boeing will simply cease to exist. Sorry to say, but they're in bed with the US government. Given the death of John Barnett, it's unclear what's going to happen in that legal case now. However, with the Department of Justice opening a criminal investigation, and with the continuous negative headlines causing both public awareness and an outcry, it's clear that Boeing is going to have their hands full with ongoing legal battles. As for the company itself, Boeing is going to need to get that public confidence back, and fast. Even though the US government is a key part of Boeing's revenue, over the last 4 years, it's been decreasing year on year. And this indicates that Boeing can't solely rely on government contracts to grow. Ultimately, the public has to feel safe in their planes, or Airbus will be eating their lunch. It's not just the public and everyday passengers that have to trust Boeing again, but also airline operators, regulators, and media alike. And for humans, trust is a very hard thing to restore once broken. Where will this all land for Boeing? Only time will tell.
So this one is OpenAI and Figure AI develop humanoid robot. Let's check it out.
You're watching The Context. It's time for our newly minted segment, AI Decoded. Welcome to AI Decoded. It's the time of the week when we dig deep into some of the most eye-catching stories in the world of artificial intelligence. We begin this week with this story from Tech Radar, stunning achievement in humanoid robotic development. OpenAI and the startup robotics firm Figure AI have released a video this week demonstrating the real sci-fi capabilities of a new visual language model, and we'll be showing you a clip of that in just a minute's time. The Medical Express details how AI is being used now to detect heart defects in newborns. The model they have developed gives the correct diagnosis in 80 to 90% of cases. Fortune says artificial intelligence is supercharging the threat of election disinformation worldwide, making it easy for anyone, even with a smartphone, to create fake but convincing content aimed at fooling voters. And on a similar theme, The Mirror says Russia is already using AI deepfakes to spread chaos in third countries, a significant threat says a new US intelligence report to the 2024 election. The Intercept reports there is now a network of AI-powered autonomous surveillance towers, about 1,000 of them, that have been put up along America's southern borders, a system that gives border guards a unified vision of unauthorised movement. And finally, in The Guardian, what does the EU's new AI bill, approved yesterday, mean for us, the consumers? We'll give you the lowdown later in the programme. Sitting alongside tonight, our AI commentator and technology author, Stephanie Hare. Hello,
Yeah.
Fresh back from Paris.
Yes.
Nice to see you. Let's start, shall we, with this glimpse of the future that's already here. It's quite fascinating, this. Pretty remarkable example of the promise of artificial intelligence. Let's take a look.
I see a red apple on a plate in the center of the table, a drying rack with cups and a plate, and you standing nearby with your hand on the table.
Great. Can I have something to eat?
Sure thing.
Great. Can you explain why you did what you just did while you pick up this trash?
On it. So I gave you the apple because it's the only edible item I could provide you with from the table.
Yo, this is like a scene out of iRobot right now. This is spooky as, bro. This, huh? The response, he got a little bit of a delay, but he sounds so human. This is crazy.
Great. So, based on the scene right now, where do you think the dishes in front of you go next?
The dishes on the table, like that plate and cup, are likely to go into the drying rack next.
Great. Can you put them there?
Of course.
Of course.
It's remarkable, isn't it? I mean, everything that I've been shown.
I'm sorry. That'll never get old to me to see that happen in real life, real time. Like, not in real time because I'm watching the video, but just to see that happen. That'll never get old to me, bro. Whoa. Whoa.
Been so far in the world of AI, the avatars that I've seen, which are on screen, they're instructed by text. The difference with this is that it's seeing, it's tasting, it's feeling its environment, and that is what blows my mind.
Yeah. I thought it was fascinating that the voice even has, because it's obviously a fake voice, probably taken from real voice samples and maybe even melded together, but it had vocal fry. So I often have vocal fry because I've got asthma and I have to cough a lot, and so you'll hear it in my voice. It's not a pure tone, it sounds a little bit hoarse. They've even put vocal fry in to make it sound like a real human. That's crazy.
I was saying last week to Priya that one of the things somebody has said to me who's interacted with one of these models is that they feel empathy. And that's why they feel empathy, because actually the voice is colloquial.
Right.
And as you say, it feels real. There's a slight pause, there's a drag, isn't there, as it processes. But as that gets quicker, it's going to be the sort of thing that some people would prefer to hang out with.
Yeah, and there's an ethical question in the way that we've even designed this robot. Like, it's a choice to try to make it look and sound and feel human. That doesn't have to be that way. We could actually design robots to be really explicitly not human, other. So why they've taken someone's voice, and even I was listening, the accent and the grammar is very specific to the United States West Coast. So he says, "Can I have something to eat?" And then somebody goes, "On it." Right? This is a very American way of speaking that wouldn't necessarily translate globally. So I'm sure what you could do is say.
Now what's crazy is is when we get the robot that's gonna understand all kind of slang terminology, he gonna be like, "Bruh, you asked me about that several times. Get it together, bruh." Like, he gonna say stuff like cap. That's cap, fam. Like, imagine the Ebonics speaking robot that's to come down the line, know all the hip hop slang and everything.
Say I wanted to speak with a French accent, or I wanted to speak in Mandarin, and do exactly that thing to make you feel a connection to it. All of that is actually really manipulative as well.
This is called artificial general intelligence. Just to explain the technicals to people, normally we're talking text to speech.
Yeah.
This is speech to speech.
Yeah.
So it, as well as seeing its environment, it is able to process, a bit like Alexa in our kitchens at the moment. It's able to process what you're saying to it.
Yes. I mean, I was noticing, even as we were just watching that again, these are quite long pauses between the human interrogator and the robot, and also the human is giving really clear, short, specific instructions. So is that going to work very well in a real world context where if people are asking a robot to do something and it doesn't do it, just like human beings sometimes ask questions in a way that's not very clear, and we have to repeat ourselves, we get angry at each other, frustrated, kick the robot. How's that going to work? So this is great, and the potential for it is clearly there. You can imagine what this would mean if we got these robots truly up and running with very minimal lag time. Could they be rolled out to start replacing humans in all sorts of jobs?
Yeah. But of course, to just take that on a peg, obviously the database is growing. It's also, it will write and rewrite its own code. So as it makes mistakes, it will learn and it will develop, and its language patterns will grow and evolve.
Yeah, that's the thing, is it almost reminds me in a weird way of how children learn language, and they're studying from everybody around it. It's learning from us, as ever, as with all machines.
Yeah. 30 years from now, when I'm a pensioner, it's going to be putting me to bed, isn't it? I just know it. I can already see it.
I was going to be doing more than that. Babysitting your children. People don't have them robots babysitting their kids. Watch.
That's the solution to, social care problems. I don't know. Talking of which, I've chosen this story tonight because I am conscious, and there are a flood of stories that will worry people tonight, but there is so much good in artificial intelligence, and this is a really good example. Artificial intelligence that can detect heart defects in newborns, which is really important because pulmonary hypertension, if you can catch it early, if you can treat it early, then the prognosis is pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, this is a classic case of where AI is really good is in healthcare, because you're looking at patterns, spotting anomalies or things that are good. And as ever, to reassure everyone, it would always be the human doctor that's going to be making the final call. This is a tool to help doctors diagnose better. And, the percentages on some of them, the correct diagnosis in some for 80 to 90% of cases, that's pretty good. Able to determine the correct level of disease severity in around 65 to 85%. So it's better than chance. It's maybe not what you want, like full betting the farm on, but always followed up by human intervention. And what's great is it also shows how it's making the decision. So it will show the doctor, this is what I'm looking at, check here. And again, the learning from that over time should make it better.
Think of how many children go from hospital or did in the past with holes in the heart, and only to find them later in life. And as you say, they've looked at the hearts of 192 newborns, hundreds of video recordings from different angles, as well as diagnosis by experienced pediatric cardiologists. 80 to 90% successful, which is pretty extraordinary. We got a Senate intelligence briefing this week. Avril Haines, the Director of National Intelligence, was talking about the threat that AI poses to elections. It's the super election year. I think around, 50% of the world is going to elections. How is AI going to affect what we hold so dear?
So what we saw a couple of years ago with elections was the role of social media in spreading misinformation and disinformation. You didn't need AI for that. You just needed lots of people on the platforms. What we're seeing now, though, is different. It's called deep fakes. So you'll have image manipulation, you'll have video manipulation, really good quality still. And then the one that's really difficult for a lot of people to detect is audio. So in that case, it might be a candidate rings you, exactly. The Biden, that's a perfect example of it. People are less on their guard about that. And until very recently, a lot of the image and video deepfakes, you could kind of tell it wasn't quite right. There was something off about it. It's just getting better and better all the time. And you've still got people who will believe whatever they see on Facebook. I do not know why. They have been given plenty of evidence.
That's very important. And let me echo that again, man. Don't trust anything or anyone. You can't these days, bro. automatically assume everyone's a scammer. Automatically assume everything you see is fake or false. You do better that way than giving people the benefit of the doubt. I'm telling you, man, it's horror stories about what's happening to people out there.
It's not to do that, but it's going to be a real public health, almost education campaign that we're going to all have to do to be like, how do we instill the critical skills people need to assess this? And that becomes the question of who is the arbitrator of truth.
The cost of it, I don't know if people followed the AI robocall in New Hampshire to its conclusion, but the guy who was behind it was a Democrat.
Yeah.
And he spent $150 getting an artist who could do an impersonation of Joe Biden. He tweaked it, and there was £5 million of investigation and resourcing that was put into it just to deal with one call. So that tells you how big the problem is.
And he said he did it to illustrate the risk of using AI to deep fake like this. So he apparently tried to prove a point.
Well, that's his defense.
That's my line, and I'm sticking to it.
I mean, just this mirror story about Russian hackers and what they're able to do, and the AI with these AI deep fakes. I remember the special counsel when he investigated Russian interference in 2016. The findings of that was that there was a troll farm in Moscow that was pumping out all these bots. Now, presumably, you can do this much more cheaply and with fewer people.
Yeah, and the thing is, when I was in Paris, I read a book called Le Mage du Kremlin, which is the Wizard of the Kremlin, and it was there. It was wonderful. I really recommend it though, because it's all about how Putin sort of came up through the ranks, and one of his top media advisors, who has a background in theater, and the BBC has actually done a show on him. The goal in election interference isn't to try to change your mind on how to vote. It's to undermine your trust in the entire process so that you don't know what to believe. What's a fact? What is fake? What's the point, therefore, of voting? Who cares? That's how you undermine democracy.
They were doing a good job of that before deep fake came along. I was already feeling like that, and I know a lot of other people were too.
Yeah, they call that the liar's dividend. Yeah. Let's talk about this number of towers. I think 1,000 towers now along the southern border. Such a big election issue, illegal migration over the US-Mexico border. Why are you concerned about this?
Well, so immigration is a big issue in a lot of countries. I don't want to particularly casticize the United States for this, but it is true on the southern border in particular, but also the northern border with Canada, often weaker. In many cases, lots of people have been getting in. And this upsets people for all sorts of reasons, as you can imagine. So what to do? It's expensive hiring humans to patrol. It's a huge country. These borders are thousands of miles long. So instead, invest billions of dollars, slip it into the Homeland Security budget to the tune of $6 billion, and build up machines, effectively, that are surveying in a hopefully unified way, they aim, starting with the two land borders and eventually the Pacific and the Atlantic as well. Interesting. So first of all, the question is, does it work? It might not. This could just be a massive waste of taxpayer money because we've invested all sorts of surveillance systems before in border control. The other thing though is, if it does work, what does that mean? Lots of people who are fleeing these countries and coming to the United States are doing so because that's the only option that they have. There's going to be I know that's not politically correct for some people, but there's a human rights asylum piece to this. There's also danger in crossing those borders. I don't know if this is the solution.
Okay, just very quickly, I just want to quickly get your thoughts, I've only a minute left, on AI and the bill that was put in place yesterday in Europe. Good thing, bad thing?
I think it's a great thing. That doesn't mean I think it's a perfect thing. So it's an important, good start. What does it mean? It means we finally have landmark legislation that's going to allow consumers and others to sue in the case of harm. It also sets a really nice level playing field, very clear if you want to operate in the European Union, grading risk. The higher the risk, the greater the regulation. It's not going to affect most people, but where it does, things like predictive policing, social scoring, real-time facial recognition technology, banned. There's a few exceptions for law enforcement in case of terrorism, which you probably would want. Other than that, I think it's a great start.
We got through them all. I always want more time in this segment, but that really was a really good analysis for all the stories that are around today on AI. I hope you'll join us same time next week for this.